Isn't it interesting? So you just proved that the energy doesn't lie. So because I think we need to really look at our levels of awareness here, because if you're doing all this research, like I said, the 5 hour before the big date, and you're looking into everything that this man has ever done, you will accidentally give yourself away. No matter how smart you are, if you are even suppressing, like let's say you even played it off really well. Now you're still not being authentic because you know all this information, you're pretending not to. You don't think someone can feel that? People can feel that.
100%.
So someone can tell when you're asking a question you know the answer to. Because your face gives you away, the way you ask gives you away, the way that you even receive their answer. Like Cam said, when you're asking level 2 questions, or if you're trying to, in some ways, kind of deceive someone by pretending not to know as much as you know. And I know that there are like these trends on TikTok where it'll be like the Taylor Swift song Mastermind, and they talk about how there was a guy they wanted to date. So they found out his dad had some kind of ceramics class. They got into the class, befriended his dad, and then said, "Oh, I'm single if you know anyone." And he introduced her to his son.
That's some stalker shit.
Now, exactly. And people, that got so many likes, and I'm looking at that example and I'm thinking to myself, is that how we want to start a relationship? That's how we want to start it, by like having so 50 steps ahead, Machiavellian-like steps to getting this person in our life that we're going to literally chessboard our way into this man. To me, that's not the sign of any relationship that you want in your life. If you gotta chessboard your way into having this person anywhere near you, it is not coming from power. That is coming from strategy, force, and most importantly, the mind.
It's manufactured. You're like a surgeon trying to make sure everything with the tweezers is perfect for this to take place.
Exactly.
But those same women are the ones that their entire life have just wanted a love story.
Welcome back to Listen Before Love. We are back again, my darling.
Episode 2.
It's
going great so far. I'm loving it.
It's amazing because we're just sitting here absolutely riffing. No preparation. Earlier today, I was like, should we discuss what topics we want to go for? And Cam's like, I'm going to say what feels right in the moment. I'm like, that sounds perfect.
I feel like this is just the way we live life now.
It seriously is.
And I can see how the past version of myself would be like, how is that possible? How do you not just mess up everything at all times? But it's funny, like all that stress or the care about the fine details of how things can turn out. When you just kind of let that go and you just trust yourself to show up in the moment, that you will be, in this case, entertaining, you will be informational, you will be all those things.
Yeah.
You'll be good enough. You're just straight chilling all day, in the present moment all day. You're not thinking about the future, and it's pretty cool. And so I'm glad we're doing that model for this podcast.
I love that, baby. I also feel like whatever we say is what is meant to be said. I always have this philosophy for my writing that if I get the download and the instant hit to write it, someone probably needs to read it. And I want to apply that model to this podcast, because if we have no preparation and we're just sitting down and letting it rip, then the things that we say probably have to reach someone out there at the perfect time. And we find that in everything we do, in our writing, the walks that I host, the great morning calls we host. So this is just yet another channel for all of our divine downloads to come through. But what you were saying before, baby, about feeling so relaxed and in the present moment these days, I wonder if you felt that way in your dating life before you met me. Did you feel calm, relaxed? Tell me about the energetic state you were in before we met.
Oh, man. I think in the dating world, I was definitely like this before. I really just didn't feel like I needed to be on my best behavior or show up in the best outfit, whatever it was for a first date or when I was dating someone. I have been, I think, very relaxed for a large period of time. Now, I wasn't fully myself in all aspects of life, 100% not. But when it came to dating, to be honest with you, I think I dated down for a lot of my life.
Ooh.
I was in an area where I would rather date someone who I knew wouldn't really challenge me and wouldn't demand the best of me. And when you set that frame, it's quite easy to be comfortable around anyone you're dating, because in some weird egoic way, you're like, they're privileged to have me here, as opposed to me being just so grateful to be in their presence or wanting to pull out all the stops for them. So yeah, that's deeper than I thought it would be, but yeah.
I remember when I met Cam's mom for the first time, she said that you never had to try hard in relationships until me. Like that she had said, oh, you know what was really unique about you and Cam is that he had never been nervous about a girl before. Or like he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know if you liked him. You left him in a period of suspense. And for that, if you tuned into our last episode where we talk about our story, that was from the day we met in person at a yoga studio and the month that followed it, where Cam and I were just vibing out, spending so much time together, and we didn't know what it was. And just the other day, we were in a sauna session, and you asked me what would have happened if I confessed my feelings to you the first time we were in the sauna together, which was as friends and or soul siblings, if you've been following along diligently. And it's funny to think about because we were in this period of suspense where you didn't know what was going on and I didn't know and also just didn't care, which was really new for me and really it felt really amazing.
Definitely. 100%.
So it almost feels like our roles reversed, where you were talking about when you dated in the past, it was really easy because you never felt like anything was on the line. When you're playing with no stakes, it's like, I don't care where this goes because it's probably not going to be the person for me. So I could just show up and be my full self.
That's it. I knew the people that I was dating was not going to be my person. And so I didn't care. You were the first person that I was like, oh crap, we got something here. Okay. Why am I getting goosebumps? Why butterflies? That's you hit it right in the nose. I knew for the far majority of my dating experience before meeting you, through college, when I was living in Bali, through high school, middle, whatever it may have been, I knew those women were not going to be my person. And so when you know it's not the one for forever,
yeah,
you don't feel like there's much on the line.
Right.
And it makes you just act different. And thankfully in that example, one of the benefits of that is probably just more relaxed and more calm. You have nothing to lose.
And now tell me about how you received the women. Did they also feel calm?
I don't believe so.
So say more on that. I think this is very important.
I think a lot of the women I pursued wanted to date me much more than I wanted to date them. And oftentimes women hadn't, and this is going to sound egoic, but I really don't care. I was someone who was more than likely more intelligent and probably had more potential or was already more successful than anyone they've ever dated before. And so they're like, I caught a golden goose here. And so a lot of them, I can feel the anxious energy around like, I got to make this work.
Ooh.
And then especially, I remember after like meeting a few families, I can feel the pressure even go more and more after that. If I
on the part of the woman.
On the woman. Yeah. Like I got to make this work. And so, in the past, I don't think I did everything I possibly could to make them feel calm and make them feel like, hey, let's just have fun. Let's just enjoy it. I think I just unaware of what was really going on to that level. I think I just kind of allowed them to live in this anxious bubble. And then, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult relationship. And of course, that's why none of them worked prior, when one person is so nonchalant and casual and doesn't really care, while the other is, taking a microscope to their iPhone, looking over every single text message of like, what does this mean?
Stalking his following list.
What does this? Yeah.
Sending the text that he sends to the group chat and asking, what should I say back? All of the anxious energy that you put towards a man is felt by the man. And that's something that a lot of people don't want to look at. But when you as the woman take on all the anxiety, you probably won't end up with that man long term. Because I believe, and you see it in our dynamic, that you gotta have the man on his toes for it to actually work. Because if the woman is on her toes, then she's pushing the ball forward. And in that way, she's in the masculine energy of doing, checking up, texting, planning dates. Hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do that? And when that's coming from a pure place of strength and I don't care, it doesn't matter. But it's rarely coming from that place with women. And we just need to be honest about this. Because I think a lot of women will spin some mind movies and stories to themselves saying, oh, but I'm going to just text him, but I don't care if he responds. And then they'll be stalking their phone for the next 5 hours. And now their mood is dependent on that text back that they said they did not care about. So we need to be really honest about the energy behind the actions. So what I try to do is anytime, and now this applies to every area of life, just not just romance, but with friends, business opportunities, before I send a text to somebody, I will check in with myself and say, what emotion is this coming from? Is this coming from a place of power? Is this coming from a really good, juicy emotion of excitement? And like, I also would not care if they didn't respond to me. I genuinely could shoot this off. And if they didn't respond to me for 2 weeks, I'd be thrilled. And I'd probably even forget that I sent it. Or is it coming from a place of like, okay, there's a lot riding on this. Like, okay, I need them to respond to me. Okay. If it's coming from a place of need or lack or force, if you want to see it in any of those words, that's when I'll check in with myself and say, instead of sending this text to this person, what can I give to myself? Instead of looking outward for that validation or moment of, okay, they responded, I'm safe. How can I make myself feel more safe? How can I make myself feel seen or valued without anything on the external? So what I started doing, and this is before we even met, with every person in my life, is I'd check in with myself before I took any action in reaching out to people. That stopped me from sending a lot of text out of fear, out of anxiety, and out of force. And when you can be really honest about the energy of where you're coming from, that's when things will start to change for you and you will put your focus inward. You will give the love that you're looking for to yourself. And that is the energetic field that the man will come, first of all, find you from, because he'll be attracted to it like a magnet, but then he'll step into it and be like, oh, it feels good in here. Feels like a nice warm jacuzzi in here. And she doesn't need me. I could get out of this jacuzzi. She wouldn't give a crap.
Men are attracted to empowered women, and women aren't attracted to empowered men. Neither of which are attracted to people that do things out of force. Sadly, the far majority of people in relationships nowadays do things out of force. We can even go on a whole tangent of dating apps and how that may be entirely force. But it's quite sad to see how many people are dependent on the text back. Yeah. That is the exact energy I felt from a lot of people that either I was casually dating or in longer relationships with. It was as if their heartbeat would stop if I didn't text them back in the next 5 minutes. And when you feel the energy, the first thing you want to do is be like, all right, I'm out.
Because you almost feel a level of guilt where you're like, wow, okay, wait, did I make a mistake here? Did I make this person feel like this is really high stakes? There's a lot riding on this. Like when you know in your heart of hearts you're not in it the way the other person is in it, is when the man starts to pull back. And instead of letting him pull back and stay back and just float away, the woman will try harder. And this is where I have so many dear friends and people who I talk to on the walks that I host who will basically be stuck in the exact situation we're talking about, where let's make this really visual. Let's say you are on dating apps. You know what you want. You have a really clear vision of this guy in your head and what he looks like and how he treats you, all of these things. And you get someone in your dating app that is to a T what you're looking for. He's the 6'2", super handsome, got a career, has his life together, has a witty profile, and your heart stops a little bit and you're like, oh my gosh, like he super liked me. Oh my God, oh, is this it? And right in that moment, there is an energetic, what would the word be for this? There's a blueprint, there's like a pattern that you are creating in the very moment that you put that guy on a pedestal because he's everything that you want. So now instead of it just being any other guy, because there's millions of guys who would match what you want, you see this one guy who also likes you, and you have your Super Bowl stakes out now. Now you have, oh my gosh, I can't mess this up. What do I say? How do I, stand out? How do I respond to him in a way that's like, I'm not trying too hard, but like, I'm quirky and I'm funny and he can like see who I am. And you just start playing these mind movies. And from that very second that you see something that looks like exactly what you want and you put that guy on a pedestal, as a woman, you've really made it hard for yourself to have a good time in this dynamic. And it's not impossible to recover from this, but you are going to set yourself into a spiral of anxiety with this man. And your very thought of, I don't want to mess this up, might mess it up.
When you're coming from force like that, you're literally giving them all the power. That's how you're coming from force. You have said, I am no longer in power in this relationship, in this business, whatever it may be. I am forcing this to happen. Therefore, you have the power. This is how all abuse takes place.
Ooh.
When a woman is coming from force in that way, you are putting all of your power into another man. And I like to think 90% of men are going to hopefully treat people right that way. But there is that 10% of men that we all know that will see that and they will jump on that and take advantage of that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. It goes a lot deeper than we think. It is the reason for a lot of relationship problems, if not all of them to begin with, coming from force. And people being so quick, putting so much on the line for one person or one date or one text is leading to so much of the anxiety that they feel around relationships. And what they're actually not like, they're not against dating. They're against the feelings dating has gotten them so far. And so far, the way they have gone upon dating has been this endless hole of rejection, anxious feelings, and resentment towards themselves and resentment towards other people.
High expectations and high stakes. And so when you see that, picture perfect Prince Charming on a dating app and you get really excited about this man you do not know. All you know is that he fits all of your checklist boxes, right? And then you have that energetic differential to where you are basically saying, oh my gosh, I've got a golden goose, which is what you felt in these women that you were dating, is that you could feel that you were a prize. And you're like, okay, they don't even know me though. And so I think what we have to be honest about here is that when you are attaching so many expectations to a profile, and you've never talked to this man, you don't know this man, all you know is that this man hits all your filters, right? But you do not know him. And so if you are putting this much investment into someone that you don't know, the second you show up for the date, and let's say, and we all can be honest about behaviors. You've stalked him on Instagram, you back to 2008, you've Googled the man, you've asked ChatGPT about him, you've gone to his Facebook to see if you have mutual friends.
You've gone to his mother's Facebook.
You've gone to his mother's Facebook to see if he has a good family.
His past employment on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
You got the whole nine.
You created a shell account to stalk his best friend. We can just be honest about this. Now, every one of those actions has created a higher and higher stake and a higher and higher expectation when you meet. And now, instead of letting it unfold and evolve naturally, and we're just here, two people meeting, and it could go badly, it could go well, who cares? It's, oh my gosh, I literally invested 5 hours of my time on the planet looking into this man because I've told myself he might be my future husband. And I'm bringing all of that hard work and anxiety to the date. And you might want to tell yourself, oh, he can't feel that. Baby, he can feel that. He can feel that. Energy does not lie. So all of the effort you're putting into it before you meet is felt by the man, probably even before you show up in person, just by how you're texting. Because energy, again, does not lie. So when you are sitting with your girls workshopping texts all day, what should I send him? Oh my gosh, this happened. Oh my gosh, he made this story. What should I swipe up and say? Every single action you take like that is felt by the man. So what do we do instead, right? My number one piece of advice is every time you feel yourself getting an urge to look his mom up on Facebook and stalk him back to 2008 and see if you have mutual friends or workshop text with your friends, stop, put both feet on the floor, do some breath work, literally just be with your breath, hand on the heart, and tell yourself, I love myself. I am whole. I am loved exactly as I am. I am enough exactly as I am. I don't need anything. I need nothing. And then do something to invest in yourself before you take any of those actions. Because every second you invest into looking into someone that you think could be your future husband will make that goal farther away. Because the energy of the situation does not lie. And if you're doing behaviors like that, it is your sign that you need to be spending more time with yourself. So the number one thing that I think you should do, if you do have these behaviors, which trust me, I've done those things before. So I have no judgment when I'm saying this. Like, this is a love letter to my former self as I'm saying this right now. But trust and believe that if you resist the urge to put all that hard work before you meet and you allow it to unfold naturally, like just to bring it to life, when Cam and I met, it was in person at a yoga studio. So I didn't know him. He didn't know me. We were letting it unfold naturally and we had no idea where it was going to go. But because we had no context or baseline for each other, it felt like two people starting at the same place. The starting line of this interaction was equal. When you do all that work, you're starting way before the guy. So now you know all this stuff about him. And I don't know if he's done any research on you, maybe some LinkedIn stalking just to see if you're a real person, right? And I get it from a safety perspective. You want to just do the bare minimum, that's great. But you don't know if he's done all this work. You don't know if he's as invested as you are. So don't do that to yourself because you are creating a gap in knowledge and research, in expectations. And because, let's just say, we play it out, the date is decent or the date doesn't go well. Now you're really disappointed because what it feels like is you put all this work into studying for the test and you failed the test. So you feel these energetic heaviness where in reality, this is a first date with a stranger you do not know. And it could either 50-50 flip a coin, go really well or badly. And so where all of the angst and anger around dating is these days is in the gap of expectations and reality. And we can work on that gap. If you take what I'm saying really seriously and you check yourself when you go into the hole of trying to research this dude, if you really, or women, because men do this too, if you check yourself before you do that and you start at the same place in the race, you will not feel that dating is super heavy and hopeless and I'll never find my person. You're creating the conditions to be hopeless by creating all these expectations and stakes. And then when it doesn't happen for you, you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm deleting the apps cyclically over and over again. And then you go back, you do the same thing, and then you feel the same level of hopelessness. So what do you think about what I just said, baby? Is there any advice that you would give for anybody who is really putting in a lot of work pre-date?
I completely agree with everything you just said. That is within itself what's causing a lot of burnout.
Yes.
It is all the pre-work. Before.
Burnout, dating burnout. It's a great way to say it because it's dating work. Because you're literally putting work into dating.
This dating, and especially in the beginning, should not be work. I mean, now for us, it's not even work.
No.
But especially in the beginning, this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be getting to know another human. The problem is, and this is really, if we're going to jump into this, why people feel a need to put in this much work is because they don't feel fully confident and comfortable showing up as their unique self, authentic self. Now, of course, there is a safety element behind that. Again, you want to make sure they're a real person. You want to make sure that they're not on some weird websites around, all that. But once that is really down, we should then be able to put the phone aside, knowing when we're going to meet at that coffee shop, or when we're going to meet here, and just go there with an open mind and open heart. And not feel as if we need to wear some type of mask to who we are. And one thing I'm going to tell you, one thing that really grinded my gears, you want to put it that way, is when I would go on a date and I could tell they've already done the research.
How could you tell?
When I say, oh, I went here for college, like, oh yeah, I saw that online. Like they make comments like that. Or they would ask me questions that would be kind of like second level questions.
Oh.
So like, how was Bali? How'd you know I went, you know what I'm saying? Like, how'd you know this about me? Well, I don't even know your last name. I don't know a thing about you.
Wow.
And you already know this. That for me made me very jaded and drained, the whole dating experience, because I'm like, oh, so you know me from my LinkedIn. You know me from my Instagram stories. That's it. And for me, that was I think, a huge turnoff. And yeah, just over time, when you can feel that energy around someone, when someone else is trying so hard to be perfect, to say the right thing, do the right thing for that half an hour or an hour you're having coffee with them, even if we on the other end are doing our best to be our full authentic self, it feels draining just being around those people. When people are inauthentic, they take away our energy. When people are authentic, they give us energy. And so even as someone who felt as if they showed up relatively authentic, when we're met with that energy of the opposite, it also leads to burnout on my end. When any work is being done between the two, it leads to burnout for both of them. That's just my experience.
Wow. Isn't it interesting? So you just proved that the energy doesn't lie. So because I think we need to really look at our levels of awareness here, because if you're doing all this research, like I said, the 5 hour before the big date, and you're looking into everything that this man has ever done, you will accidentally give yourself away. No matter how smart you are, if you are even suppressing, like let's say you even played it off really well. Now you're still not being authentic because you know all this information, you're pretending not to. You don't think someone can feel that? People can feel that.
100%.
So someone can tell when you're asking a question you know the answer to, because your face gives you away, the way you ask gives you away, the way that you even receive their answer. Like Cam said, when you're asking level 2 questions, or if you're trying to, in some ways, kind of deceive someone by pretending not to know as much as you know. And I know that there are like these trends on TikTok where it'll be like the Taylor Swift song Mastermind, and they talk about how there was a guy they wanted to date. So they found out his dad had some kind of ceramics class. They got into the class, befriended his dad, and then said, "Oh, I'm single if you know anyone." And he introduced her to his son.
That's some stalker shit.
Now, exactly. And people, that got so many likes, and I'm looking at that example and I'm thinking to myself, is that how we want to start a relationship? That's how we want to start it, by like having so 50 steps ahead, Machiavellian like steps to getting this person in our life that we're going to literally chessboard our way into this man. To me, that's not the sign of any relationship that you want in your life. If you gotta chessboard your way into having this person anywhere near you, it is not coming from power. That is coming from strategy, force, and most importantly, the mind.
It's manufactured. You're like a surgeon trying to make sure everything with the tweezers is perfect for this to take place.
Exactly.
But those same women are the ones that their entire life have just wanted a love story. It's the same artist that writes about love stories the entire time.
It's romanticizers.
So romanticizers are like, I want this so badly, but I'm not going to put myself in situations to allow that to happen. I'm going to do the complete opposite out of force, and I'm going to go to the dad's ceramics class, whatever that may be. But I feel as if, again, this is coming from abundance in a world that has taught us to be scarce. Mm-hmm. But if we put ourselves in environments for miracles to take place, or to meet the right person to take place, and it can be romantic, it can be friends, it can be whatever. If we put ourselves in those situations, those circumstances, it will happen when it's meant to.
Yes. Yes.
And everything that we do, all this erratic behavior, which is what it is taking place, is our inability to trust that statement. If all of us just felt as if we can show up fully authentic and put ourselves in the rooms, put ourselves in the environments and the circumstances that would create the love story, it can and probably will happen. And it may not be the first time you go, but it will.
And you'll draw it to you instead of drawing it out. Instead of drawing out every single detail and then making those details happen, the details will just unfold beautifully. And I think one thing about this situation is that if you have like a target of somebody that you want to date, and you are putting yourself into this grand mastermind plan to get this person, where that is really coming from is from the mind. And I want to really zoom in on that for a second, because I do think that when I look at all the relationships that I've studied, both on TV, we love shows like Love is Blind, Married at First Sight. We are like armchair relationship experts on TV, but we also talk to people all the time in our clients and people who come to the walks that I host. Everywhere we go, we're talking about relationships. And I think one thing I've noticed, like a golden thread through all of the relationships that I've witnessed and also examined, because people will bring their problems to me, is that the relationships that are coming from the mind are the least healthy. They have the most conflict. They have the most almost like feeling like it's a puzzle piece that should fit, but it doesn't quite fit. It doesn't feel right. When those couples who met and they have everything that the other was looking for. They have all the checklist items crossed off. So, the guy is 6'2" and handsome, has a great career, passionate about something, and the woman is exactly what the man wants, which you can give me some checklist items for women.
Hot.
Great.
Kind, caring. Loves to take care of them, whatever it may be, whatever that man may be.
That's what I was just curious to see what you say. But let's say both the man and the woman have exactly what they wanted. But when you're around that couple, something just doesn't feel right. And I know everybody in their life knows a couple like that, where it's their dream partner on paper, but something just doesn't fit. And you can feel it. It's not anything that you can understand logically. It's just an emotion, a feeling when you're around the connection. It's like there's a level of just subtle friction to the dynamic. When that happens, it's because it was coming from the mind. And it was some level of force happening in that relationship from the very beginning that neither party wanted to really look at close enough to say, where there is force, there's going to be friction. And when any of those two things exist, this relationship probably isn't coming from the heart. It's coming from the mind.
Force and friction, and those all are rooted in fear. And so when those relationships take place, those checklist relationships, is when oftentimes there's a timeline for both people. Ooh. The woman is, let's say, 29, and she has the mindset of, I need to get married soon because I want to have kids in 2 or 3 years. I don't have that much time. I can't wait till I'm 35, 37. I need to get this now. How many guys that meet all these checklists will actually meet in this next 24 months? And he's pretty good. I like his family. I don't love him, but they got a weird mother, but I love this. Whatever. It's like, it's not absolutely perfect and no, it doesn't feel right. But in their mind, they have these fears popping up of, well, what if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't happen? So it's settling, which is basically what they're doing. Both parties are choosing, good enough. Let's make it work. And that's when they believe there won't be any friction. Then friction continues. There's friction in their mind to begin with, and it continues throughout the entire relationship and into the marriage and into having kids. And so it's quite interesting because we've talked about before, like how the frame starts is how it grows. And I feel like that's just very common. If it's starting from a place of fear, it's starting from a place of settling down, then it'll continue as such throughout the entire relationship.
And let's talk about where that comes from. I know in the last episode we were sharing some of at least my scarcity mindsets. I think some of the inputs to this, so if this resonates with anybody, for women, I think why settling happens is, number one, the strongest underlying belief is that they don't believe that they can find what they're looking for because they don't believe they're worthy of it. So at the very core of settling is a self-worth issue. And from that, all of the other mind movies flow. So if you don't believe you're worthy of that love, then that is what creates he has most of what I'm looking for, so we can make it work, right? That's where the settling energy comes in. Or it's, I only have, 5 years until I'm 35, and this is the best person I've found, so I'm just going to buckle down and we can get through it and we can solve our communication issues or that same problem that's really been there from day one, but we don't really want to look at that. I'm not looking very close because he has most of what I'm looking for. So I'm going to look past a lot of the things, a lot of the, not just red flags, but just core incompatibilities in order to make this thing work. So there's that. I'm running out of time. It's huge. Just an element of scarcity that I had a vision for my life and how I wanted it to go. So for a lot of women, it's I want to be married by 30. That's a huge thing that you hear. And because it's so commonplace, when you are over 30 and you don't have a man, women feel like they're almost lesser than or looked down upon because there's something wrong with them. So that starts to exacerbate it even more. And I think for women over 30 who haven't found someone, it can be an incredibly vulnerable place where the ground is fertile for all of these self-worth mind movies to keep playing and keep playing. And it isn't until you really do the work to look within yourself and give yourself the opposite of all the stories that your mind is playing, to where you can create safety and worth and worthiness in your own nervous system. If you really hit the pavement and say, you know what? I recognize that this is in the back of my head. When I'm on dates with a guy and he has everything I'm looking for on paper, but it doesn't really feel right, like there's weird friction, he says things. I'll give an example. There was a guy, this is the story of my relationship life, so this is why I know this very intimately. I have a very intimate relationship with settling. I've done it many times before Cam. And I had dated a guy who, from really day one, we did not communicate well, but it wasn't that bad. This is the real tricky part, is that when it's not that bad, you'll justify yourself away from it and you'll be like, oh, like, it's not that bad. Like, oh, and then when you tell it to your friends, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you in this relationship? So I had dated this one guy who I noticed from the very beginning, he would say things that were very passive aggressive. And I do not do well with that energy. I don't like when people are indirect. All passive aggressiveness is I have an emotion that I'm feeling that I don't want to tell you. So I'm going to make a comment so I can get the emotion out and kind of give you a dig, a little knife twist in there. And this would commonly come up. We were also long distance. I was not exactly in an emotionally available place. So I'll take accountability for this relationship. Never should have happened, but I had scarcity around, I don't want to end up alone. And will I ever find anyone? And this guy fit most of what I was looking for. So of course, my scarcity stories made me date this guy because I felt like I'd never find someone better. Huge. This is, love this guy, by the way. Great guy. Just wasn't my guy. So I'm dating this guy. We have these core compatibility issues from day one. And I knew from day one, it was not going to be my person. Just like Cam said, you have a feeling that it's like, this isn't easy. Like there's a core friction. And even if I try to share what's on my heart and I try to share it with him, what he would say hurt me, it would just keep happening. And it's not because these are communication issues that can be solved. It's because it was the essence of who I was with the essence of who he was. So there's communication issues, and then this is a core part of your personality and being that will not change. And so if I am with this person, I am committing to a lifetime of being upset over the same thing. And I knew that as it was happening. I knew that this was not just a communication thing. He was just a more negative person than me. And as a very positive person, I feel my emotions very strongly. And if somebody was consistently coming at me with these little verbal jabs and sarcastic comments, it would bring me down. Every single time it happened, I felt like I got an inch shorter and I got a little smaller and I contract. And I just knew, this is not a dynamic that I want to be in, but it's also not that bad. He wasn't abusive. He wouldn't insult me. It was just, I'll give an example if this resonates with anybody. So at this time, I was hanging out with my friends a ton and we were long distance. So there was this one specific moment where he had called me on the phone. I was cooking dinner and then I was going to go hang out with my friends. And these are two of my friends, Brian and Annie, who have been in a relationship for a long time. And so there is no threat. There's no single dude at this gathering. It's literally just me hanging out with my two friends. And he knows them, had met them. And I was like, he's like, oh, so what are you going to do tonight? I'm like, oh, I'm going to go, hang out with Brian and Annie. And he cuts me off and real angrily and aggressively goes, "Do Brian and Annie ever hang out by themselves?" And I was like, whoa. Like, it blew me back. And this is the kind of thing that, like, it right when I heard it, because I'm very emotional, so I had such a reaction to how he said it and what he said. And I'm just like, why is this person mad at me for hanging out with my friends? That I just, in that moment, almost like had a bodily reaction, kind of like shaking. And I was like, I can't, like, I almost, thinking it was exactly how I felt it. Just something about saying that out loud really brought me back to that moment. I like collected myself and was like, I really appreciate if you don't talk to me that way, because it really affects my mood when you take that tone with me. So I hope you have a great rest of your night, but I'm going to go now and I'll talk to you later. And then I hung up the phone. But I just remember it stuck with me the whole rest of the day after he said that. And this is what I'm talking about. It didn't happen all the time. It was an occasional, almost emotional outburst that was passive aggressive, had like a little bit of contempt in there, which, by the way, the number one relationship killer emotion is contempt. It's very hard to be with someone long-term with that, unless you would just want to be in a miserable relationship where you'll end up sleeping in different rooms and not really being in love. So when I felt this, it was actually one of those very hallmark moments when I knew I'm in a relationship that I shouldn't be in. It's not going to last for very long, but how do I end this thing with somebody who doesn't live where I am? So he then came to visit me. And at the end of that trip, it had cemented. I knew this was not my person. And then we ended the relationship. But that's just one example of, like, when you have that level of friction with somebody, it's probably not your person. Because if it was your person, your hearts would speak close enough to the same language to where you never have a moment that blows you back like that. You would never have an extreme emotional reaction to someone because they trust you, you trust them, you understand each other at a very deep level. And it's never you versus the other person. It's the both of you versus the problem or situation. So that's just one example. I'd be curious if you had any reaction to that.
I absolutely love that. I never heard that story before. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel if that underlying friction takes place, is a very good sign they're not your person. Now, I say this, I think I'm a very good communicator. You're a very good communicator, even though in the past we have not been. We've just developed to the point in which we are. Mm-hmm. And so I completely understand that there are people that are right for each other that may still have those moments.
Yeah.
But I think oftentimes we know the difference.
Yes.
Like, we can feel a difference. Is this just how they currently see the world and a communication issue that they can get better at? They're still my person, XYZ, whatever it may be. Or is this a fundamental feeling I receive every time they communicate in that way that is just a reminder of that thing I've been putting in the back burner for potentially years, that this isn't the right one for me? Because there's very different, unique things. Is this like a growth maturity problem here? Or is this a reminder that this is not the one?
Ooh.
And I feel like a lot of people are currently wondering that in their mind. Well, at least they want to wonder that, as opposed to look upon it as, this is definitely not my person.
Well, it's interesting. How do you know the difference? Because I think this is a core issue of what we're talking about, is that when it's very close, when this person is most of what you're looking for, and there's like a 5 to 10% incompatibility, you tell yourself that 5 to 10% can be worked on and improved. So when is it that? Because of course, no one's perfect. And when you get into a relationship, that'll be your biggest mirror and you'll heal and grow in that relationship. But when is it that versus this is just not the person? Like, what are signs that might tell you when it's one versus the other?
I think rarely when I see potential character flaws or perspective differences in you and I look at it as like just more of you to love.
Oh,
seriously, like that really how it feels it's coming from. Where I remember in the past, I would have a more visceral reaction, like my teeth would be like, I'd have that feeling in my entire body that is just reinforcing that, oh, this may not be my person, as opposed to this is my person, they're just not perfect. And I really feel people, of course, when they're in their minds all day, that's when it gets complicated. But when they're able to get back in their body and live a life more aligned in that way, that navigation system, their intuition will tell them exactly what that feeling really is. I wish I could bring up an example I've had in my life, but I've had relationships where they just do something in their own personal lifestyle choices that are just so against how I want to live that I just know immediately, all right, this is not my person. This happened a lot in college when I was dating a girl, and this happened a handful of times, but definitely like the hardcore partiers, sorority girl, and they would just get obliterated drunk every single weekend.
Wow.
And, lose their phone, scrape their knee, and and then they call me in like the other side of the country, they're in Miami on a boat, and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna work. Yeah, you're cute, we have a great time, this ain't gonna work. So there's big behavior and lifestyle choices there that are so obvious, but when it gets really subtle, I can see where that could be a difficult time. Have you ever had one where it felt as if it could have gone either way of this being your person, or was it always very clear that this isn't the one?
Well, it's interesting because when I was, and I asked you the question of how could you tell the difference between if it's like somebody who could be your person, but you just have some things to grow into together versus like they're really close, but it's just a core incompatibility. I was thinking about in my own experiences and what you said about the full body emotion of like annoyance. I think that one thing that comes with that is the strong desire to change them. So that's like, let's bring this to life a little bit. My mom calls me Hurricane Elle, in that I leave like cups everywhere. Like I'm almost like a slug with like a trail of empty cups or like half drank Diet Cokes everywhere.
So this isn't a new thing.
No,
this is a new thing.
I've been like that forever. I just have it. Like there's a part of my brain missing that makes me put the cups away.
Because every night I feel like I'm the Red Cross or something, having to go through the house after Hurricane Katrina or something like that. It makes complete sense. So that's been going around for a while. Your mother was the disaster relief.
Yeah, and this was like a big point of tension for her because, well, actually, this is a great example because she wanted to change that in me so badly, and she couldn't because it was a core part of my being. And like, I wish it wasn't. I don't honestly know why I am like that, because sometimes I remember, but I just think like I'm constantly thinking about ideas and almost like playing through writing in my head. And so when that is taking precedence, I just don't think about these small details of like, oh, I put a cup down and now I have to go get that cup and put it away. My brain just doesn't work like that. So my mom and I would get into these like constant arguments about me not putting my cups away, or like Hurricane Elle coming through, like go clean it up. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I remember and I go do it. But this is actually a great example because of course she's not my lover, this is my mother, right? She would be like, why can't you just put the damn cups away? And she'd just be angry about it. And I would be like, really helpless because my brain just cannot remember it, even if I'm told a bunch of times, like the cups. Sometimes I will, but it's not going to be perfect. But in relationships, it feels the same. I actually feel like if we were together and there was like a level of doubt in the back of your mind, this behavior, which I know you don't have, you're very clean and you always remember to put things away. So we don't have that same level of compatibility in terms of like putting things away. Yeah. So if you had any level of doubt, it's something like that would make you be like full body emotion. I wish this person wasn't like that. Like it almost angers you so much to where you want to change me. But you don't feel that way. You want to just accept me for all that I am, even though I'm a little bit of a cup tornado.
Let me make it very clear. If in your mind, you feel as if you've created a pros and cons list for your person, they're not your person.
Heater.
That's what I've done in the past. I've created a pros and cons list where what kept me in it is, of course, there's a significant amount more pros than cons, or just by little. It could be 51% pros, 49% cons. It is until those cons get big enough, whether I find out new things or those things just irk me even more and more than ever before. Those cons are now more than the pros that make me finally leave. I think that's what's taking place for the far majority of relationships.
Yeah.
For you, who like not ever since, probably like a week after I met you, I knew you're my person. There is no pros and cons list. It's like, this is my person. And whatever lifestyle she has, this Hurricane Elle, I will create a nighttime routine of going around the house and picking up all Diet Cokes and putting in the glass waters, whatever it may be. It's like, I will adjust my life for these inconveniences that her lifestyle may cause me because it's 100% worth it. It's like, there is no pros and cons list anymore. And I never really thought of that. I never really noticed that until now, but that just makes complete sense to me, because if you in your mind are having to sit back and rationalize the entire thing, well, he does this, and that. We look this way together, good family, but he has this, and this. Okay, but this list is less than that list, so we'll stay together. I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing. If it's a pros and cons list, we are completely out of the body.
We are so out of the body.
Intuition, and we are rationalizing, literally rationalizing as if it was a spreadsheet, this entire relationship. That's how you know it's not meant to be. When it's meant to be, it'll feel right. It'll feel right. And then you'll put up with Hurricane Elle.
Exactly.
You'll put up with all the little things. I have little things too, all the time, every day, that you put up with. You've created a lifestyle around to make sure that those things happen. You can say it if you want.
Well, I think giving these examples is actually really helpful, because I honestly didn't even know what we just talked about. I didn't even notice that until right in this moment. Yeah. How like you have really adjusted your lifestyle to mine. And here's the other thing. Because we're not in the mind in our relationship, we don't keep score. I actually think this is another amazing sign that like, I didn't notice. Of course, I noticed when all of the things Cam does for me, but I didn't notice that he went around and collected the cups at night. I just never noticed that. But now I know that, and I'm very grateful, and I love you so much, baby. Thank you, baby. All I know is that like he loves to clean and gets a lot of joy. Like literally before we came on this podcast, he was like, I get to do laundry again soon, and got really excited about it. So he loves to clean. Like thank you, God, for giving me this amazing man. But I didn't really notice that because we are in the body in our relationship, I don't do things so that you'll notice. I just do them because I love you. And I know that there are certain things that will make you happy. So what this will look like for me is I'll always be checking in on him. Like, can I get you some water with electrolytes? You know, can I bring it up to the office for you? Or can I rub your feet with lotion at night? I'm always checking in on things that like, do you need this in this moment, or you want this in this moment? So that's how I show my love for you. Or just like, do you want to cuddle? Or just like little things that I know like you will absolutely love. Or when we're in the car deciding on what to eat, and then you'll look over at me and be like, what do you want to eat? And then I just like make a face, and then whatever you say, because I'm a cockroach and I can survive in any conditions. So whatever he says is what we eat, because I literally am over the moon thrilled to eat whatever you want to eat. And I know that whatever you guess is what you want.
Yeah. It's this really fascinating dynamic that I never thought was even possible, but I really feel like we don't really have that many expectations for each other.
Not at all.
Like my birthday's coming up in October. If you forgot my birthday, I would not care at all.
Forget you.
And of course you never, but like it wouldn't feel any certain way about me. There's no expectations about what you need to do for me. And this is a big thing. This is what it really comes down to. If we feel as if our worth in this world is based off what we do, our job title, what we do for our romantic partner or lover, I'm sorry using partner, that's weird, lover, or for our family, for our friends, if we have our worth based off of what we do, that is also what we're going to expect from relationship. So that's when I ask, what does he do for you? What does she do for you? I've never once asked, what does Elle do for me? The only thing that goes through my mind when it thinks about the quality relationship is how I feel around her. And when that is on lock, when that feels incredible, when I feel empowered to become more of the best version of myself, to step in the highest version of who I can be, the amount I must do to even maintain a clean household is irrelevant. is irrelevant. And that feels really, really incredible, because I think, only recently, because this probably wouldn't have been the case for us 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't think any longer value each other or value our own selves off of what we do.
Yeah.
We value ourselves of who we are. And so it isn't like, oh, he got flowers for me, so I'll do this for him. Or she did this for me, so I'll do this for him. It's none of that at all. And so what happens is when you are being reciprocated, you feel as if you're being reciprocated based off of how they make you feel on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You're like, I am receiving so much love, gratification, and just pure joy from this person. How can I reciprocate that? It's like this infinite game.
Yes.
There is no counting, like again, the pros and cons of this or spreadsheets. There is no numbers on what they've done for me today. It is, how can I serve this person in any which way? And the funny thing is, because when we live this aspect to where you're just constantly giving me love all the time, just through all different ways of love languages, whatever it may be, I feel so much more energized because of that. I now have the energy to literally get off my ass and do things for you. Whether it's pay the bills and make sure the lawn care is being done, the car maintenance, or whatever it is, or simply just serving you around the house, whatever that may be. But you unlock a new level of energy simply by us changing the way we look upon the energy exchange in our relationship. But it's so incredible to get to the point where you look through life through the lens of, how can I best serve this person today? And you're looking for the next way to serve them. Like I said, I'm excited to do your laundry.
I know.
I'm excited to cook for you next. I'm excited to clean for you next. It's funny, we don't even have like normal gender roles. I do a lot of the doing in the house, like nearly all of it. And she does a whole lot of the being of the house.
I do.
But literally, like, if it wasn't because of her, my businesses wouldn't have any flavor to them. They wouldn't have any love within them. They'd just be structures and services. But you bring that part into it, which is what allows them to be successful, which allows with this to be successful and everything else we do to be successful.
Yeah.
You bring that love and energy and humanness, that motherly touch to everything we do. And that has just been the ultimate plus to my life, to where I will make sure whatever your love language is, I will touch on all of them just to make sure I hit it. And so I think the goal, now that I've experienced this, even though months ago I didn't even think it was possible, now I've experienced this, I think that is a worthwhile embodiment for other relationships to get to. There is no, you took out the trash, so I'll clean the dishes. There's none of that at all.
Yeah.
It's like, what can I do to serve this person in this moment? How can I make their life easier? And what I've noticed, like, especially because I know men struggle with this a lot, because they come from a world where their entire worth is based off what they do. And so they're constantly, oftentimes, wanting to do less and get more. They feel that way through their work. They feel that way through their health. They feel that way through their relationships, friendships, and lovers. They want to do the least while getting the most. And that underlying foundational mindset is ruining all the relationships. If they looked upon themselves and said, what if it's never quote unquote equal? What if I just give to everyone everything? What can happen? The reason why it's not happening is because people are coming from force. And they don't believe, they come from fear, so they don't believe that they will be properly reciprocated if they were to give.
Yeah.
But when you reach a point where I know that if I just give to you in every single moment that I can, in whichever way, if that means we stop by Chick-fil-A to grab you Diet Coke on the way home, that means just words of affirmation, like every moment I feel any positive emotion around you, I say it.
He really does.
Or if there's any outfit you wear, whatever it is, I'm commenting on it, genuinely, because I've noticed it. And as soon as I notice it, I say it because I love it.
Yes. Then
it's creating this kind of energy exchange of love constantly.
Yes.
And that we're always just empowering each other to step in the highest version of ourselves, knowing that we have this foundational reciprocity of love taking place, which is something I think most humans have ever experienced.
Yeah, it's really special to think about the inputs to feeling completely secure in a relationship. I feel like, there's so many things I want to dig into on what you just said, but I do feel like just talking about relationship dynamics in terms of masculine and feminine energy, which we touched on the last episode a little bit, what you just described is a beautiful illustration of those principles, in that women, at least I'll speak for myself, growing up, I derived all of my value, all of my worth from how smart I was and how much I accomplished and how well I did. Keyword did. I was constantly doing, I was constantly pushing forward, I was constantly achieving, especially in school. And so a lot of my worth came from how smart I was and how much I accomplished. When I got older and moved on to the point where I graduated college, top of my class, and went into the workforce and was like, oh, it's time for love now. Because I had only had that frame, which is, by the way, a very masculine frame to be going around the world, I didn't ever know that it was possible to be valued for who I was, to be valued just for sitting here and shining a light through my energy. I was not aware of that concept at all. It was completely foreign to me. So when I started to do this inner work and realized that I had a window that had a lot of dirty specks on it from past wounds and insecurities and memories that really stuck with my soul, and I did all the things from breath work to somatic healing to sound baths and I still do these things today, by the way, because transformation takes maintenance. After I had done all those things, I said to myself, oh, I am valuable because I am. I'm valuable because I'm sitting here. I'm valuable because I bring my heart to situations and not just my mind. And I had this one breakthrough moment that I don't even think the people involved realized how significant this was. I just went to a random gathering. This is before I met Cam. And this was the first time that I think the principles of being versus doing as a woman clicked for me, and I felt euphoric. I was in think about typical kind of happy hour event. I was in a conversation for about 45 minutes with these two men who were talking about educational policy. I'm on the board of a preschool here in town, so I actually surprisingly know a lot about educational policy. But the entire conversation, I didn't say anything. I just listened. I could have interjected a ton of times. I could have flexed my knowledge. I could have showed them how smart I was, which is very much something I felt compelled to do in the past. But I just stood there, soaked in everything these two men were saying, like a sponge. And at the very end, I asked a question that literally blew these dudes back because they were so shocked that I basically had taken every of the key points that they made in this argument, put them into a concise paragraph, summing it all up, and then ask a question that they had never considered before. And they were like, they literally said, holy shit. Like, who are you? And it wasn't because I talked for 30 minutes at them or I flexed all my knowledge. It was because I probably spoke for 1 to 2 minutes tops, left them with something that was so energetically powerful and present that they had their minds blown. And then I walked away. And I just remember getting home and I was buzzing because I was like, wow, I've never done that before. I've never gone to a happy hour or an event and found myself in an intellectual conversation, which I love, and did not speak most of the time and did not share my opinions most of the time. And when I had that moment, I realized the real value I added to that interaction was my presence, was my energy, was my intentionality. And then at the very end, coming through with a question in a concise summary that pierced the entire interaction. So what are they going to remember most about that moment? Me. That's what they're going to remember, because they're going to remember my energy and what I brought to that conversation. And it wasn't my words. It was my energy.
People do not remember what you did for them. They remember how you made them feel. And it's exactly what you did there. And how that was possible is because you were being, also known as being present.
Yep.
You were able to remember everything they said because you're actively listening. Because when I feel as if you need to prove something, you're in the mind. You're somewhat listening while also trying to make your own next argument in your head of like, what am I going to say here? What if they say that? Whatever it is. Okay, I'm going to say this. Then I'll get them. Whatever it is. You're not fully present with them. And they come from a world where everyone always has inner dialogue. So finally meeting someone that is fully present for the 45-minute conversation, whatever it was, that is the difference maker. That's honestly, that's what I do for work. Like I'm a listener. I'm a person who's paid to be present. And when we're also being present, we're also making people feel seen. We're making people feel seen. That means we are showing them love. And so that's basically what you and I do.
Yeah.
For work, but also you just do that 24/7. I mean, we both do, but you definitely do that incredibly well, 24/7. And when I tell you that is the single greatest gift you can give another person in this world, it makes this life worth living. Truly, when you can give others and they feel that level of presence and love, it restores their faith in humanity. It's hard to say it, but it sounds so wild to say. But after those men were done, I swear to you, they were more optimistic about the entire world after they had met you. And they're never going to forget you because you gave them the gift of presence by just being. And that is something I think men can definitely learn from also, because like you're saying, that was more of a business aspect, business realm. Men could, quote unquote, capitalize on that and learn to be more present. And make sure all the experiences they step into are memorable experiences for themselves and others. But for women, that's all a man really needs.
That's why I tell this story, because that one moment is when I realized that I could make a shift in how I see my own value. So my own value in that interaction was simply being there and listening and holding space and being very present. And then the fact that I wasn't talking did not mean I wasn't smart. Didn't mean that I wasn't following the conversation. Didn't mean that I didn't have lots of opinions or things I could have said. I just chose not to. I just chose to be a very present, very locked in listener, because if I can make this person feel that what they're saying is important, then they feel important. That's all active listening is doing.
Did you have that experience on dates?
Yes.
How so?
Oh, so it was interesting because so one of the reasons that I really avoided dating was because of what you described earlier, but flipped. So when I would go on dates with guys, it wasn't fun for me, and it was high stakes because I was afraid. So it was a different flavor. It wasn't high stakes because it was like, this is my husband. There was a little bit of that because I've always wanted to be in partnership, but it was mostly because I really didn't want to be dating. I didn't have very strong boundaries at the time. So coming from a Roman Catholic background, women don't have a choice in a lot of what happens in that religion. So growing up, you're told how to dress, you're told what to say, you're told how to act. And when you step out of line, you get severely punished and shamed. And so from pre-K through 12th grade, that was my lived experience in Catholic schools, was asking questions out of curiosity and being sent to the principal's office and sent home, or trying to pave my own path and being severely bullied, especially sexually by men who, just to give you some details, all through high school, I was given porn star names as nicknames. People would come up with rumors that I was giving blowjobs in the back of AP Bio. I didn't even have sex or do anything sexual in high school. So a lot of these beliefs that I had were formed in that period of time where I was really afraid of being in situations alone with men, because in the past, I didn't have the ability to stand up for myself. I didn't have a voice, and I didn't feel like I had my own agency or choice in the situation. So when you grow up without a choice, when you're one-on-one with a man, you almost defer your choice to him. And so when I would go on dates, if a man was interested in me, but I wasn't interested in him, I would keep seeing that man because he wanted me, even though I didn't want him. And I know this is coming from my roots in Catholicism, and it sounds really silly because now I can say this and say, well, why didn't you just leave? You know, people say that to survivors of sexual abuse. They'll be like, I'll go a little deeper here. One of the things that had happened to me after I graduated college was I was assaulted on an airplane. And it was a red-eye flight, and it was a crew of guys from NBC Gulf who had gotten onto the plane very drunk very drunk. Like you could smell them coming down the aisle. And it was a Southwest flight. So it was open seating and you could choose where you wanted to sit. And the second they came onto the plane, I knew one of them was going to sit next to me because there was an open seat. And they did. And the whole flight, which it wasn't very long, I think it was from Austin to Fort Lauderdale, where I'm from. When the lights went off, because it was a nighttime flight, they didn't do like a run of service because it was really late. This guy started touching me. And in this situation, I could have hit the assistance button on the plane to have called a stewardess, but I didn't. And I froze. And this happens a lot with women who have the same background that I have, because I had from pre-K to 12th grade a muscle memory for freezing in those situations. And so I can look at this story that I'm telling and say, like, I understand why people would say, why didn't you hit the button? You could have fixed the problem right there. Why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you scream? Why didn't you say anything? And I can't honestly really tell you why. I just thought that I could get myself out of it. I thought I could outsmart him in that situation. And you know what I did? I started asking him questions. I started asking him a lot of questions about his life. And I was smart enough to, before we took off, I had him put his name into YouTube so that I had his name, because I was like, oh, you're on the golf crew. Can I see some of your clips? This is how much my intuition knew he was going to do something to me. Is like I got him to put his name into YouTube so that I could press charges. Like it went through my mind. So the intuition was so powerful, but it still happened to me on a plane surrounded by people. So I only share this because these programs are really, really deep. And I understand, I have so much compassion for people who find dating and men to be scary, because for a lot of my life, I did too. But a lot of the work that I did to come back to myself was around going there the way that I just did. I've told that story in particular is really hard for me to get through emotionally, because there's a lot of shame around me not getting myself out of that situation. Because it's like, you're literally in public, you're on an airplane. Like, how could that have happened to me? I'm a very smart girl. So I see that as almost a personal failure, which is why I get emotional about it. Other stories like this, I have healed completely, and I can share them without getting emotional. But this one creates a lot of shame in me to say, because it makes me feel stupid, and it makes me feel like all the times when people will hear about women getting assaulted and saying, well, why didn't you do this? That's my perfect example of that kind of story in my life. So maybe sharing it with all of you is one of the last steps of my healing, because I've done a lot of work to feel better about what happened to me on the plane and how silly I felt for a long time. But just to finish the story, so it had happened. Basically, he started groping me, and I don't want to get too in detail, but I'm actually going to skip that, if that's okay with everybody. Not that I need permission. But so I had gone into a defense position by asking him questions about his life. And that was a pattern that started to develop in me in high school. Whenever I felt like I was put in a really compromising position with a man, I would just start asking him questions to tire him out, to literally get him to fall asleep, because I have infinite energy and I can go all day. So, and I ask amazing questions and they regenerate almost like a ChatGPT generator. So I just started asking. And it was really late. All the lights were off. He was very drunk, and he eventually fell asleep. And I just remember, like, when he fell asleep, I cried from relief, because I was like, I did it. Like, I got myself out of the situation. And I just prayed the whole time that he would stay asleep for the rest of the flight, because
I knew that if he woke back up, then I'd have to do it again. But it worked. So then the plane stopped and everyone woke up and we're getting off the plane, and he and the crew of guys are like, oh, where are you going? You want to come back with us? And they were being like really aggressive and like touching me. And I was like playing it off as if I was friendly with them because I didn't want to like cause an alarm. I didn't want them to almost like grab me or something and like take me somewhere crazy. So I was playing along like it was a friend. And then I had found a point in the airport where there was a pillar of bathrooms, and I hid behind the pillar, and they were all waiting for me by like the Uber dock. At this point, it was just right outside of the doors of the airport. And they waited there for like 30 minutes. And then I waited literally behind this column, waited for them to leave. But they were like, where'd she go? Like waiting for me to leave. And then they gave up eventually and just went home. And it wasn't until then when I Ubered back home. So that was like a really, really hard situation that stuck with me emotionally, because how it manifested when I would show up on dates, that happened in 2018. So I had just graduated from college the year before. I was living on my own in Austin. I was 1 year into my first job. And then that happened to me. And it really affected how I was dating. I didn't even know that at the time, because I've had many, many times in my life with stories like that, where I basically am in a position where men are desiring me. And because I don't have boundaries and I'm really afraid that they're going to harm me or do something worse, I just go along with it. So when I would go on dates, to go back to the beginning, and I'd show up, even though they could be the nicest guys who don't want to hurt me, and they're just really kind and asking questions, and they're genuinely interested in me, and they want to be physical and kiss and make out and stuff in the appropriate times. I'm not talking about like the first date. I'm talking about like date 3. Even if I didn't want to, I would sacrifice myself and do that because I felt like somewhere deep in my programming, like I would be harmed if I didn't. And it went so deep. I was going on multiple dates with guys I was not into. So that's why dating was, to go back to the beginning when we're talking about like how you create your own emotion, your own emotional framework and blueprint for dating. The emotional blueprint that I had for dating at that time was like, I'm afraid, but I'm like doing it scared. And I'm just looking for someone who feels safe. And that's when you settle, because I was looking for anyone who felt safe, including people who did not match what I was actually looking for. So that's, sorry, I just went on a little bit of a whirlwind there, but.
Thank you for sharing, baby.
You're welcome, baby.
I feel as if way too many women are going to resonate with that.
Yeah.
I'm very, very glad you shared that.
Thank you, baby. I did not expect to share that. I've actually never talked about that. I don't think I've even written about that. It's a very hard story for me.
It just reminds me that as we talk about these topics, we're never here to shame or point the finger, look down upon any behavior that people have currently when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
So many people have a past of stories like this that, whether they know it or not, are defining how they interact with others. And it definitely saddens me to hear, because when you hear stories like that, you understand why people may suppress what they know is best for them in the moment. And that's something, as a man, I've never experienced. But I know many, many women have.
It reminds me too of what happened with Aziz and Ansari. And I just bring this up because I think
for good reason, the story with Aziz got huge traction because reading that story, which if you're not familiar, basically there was a woman who came out and shared her story where she'd gone on a date with Aziz and liked him, but wasn't ready to be physical. But she wasn't outright saying that. But in her body language, it was kind of like oh no, kind of a jokey, like, no, oh no, like, not yet, or, oh, hold on there. And he wasn't like picking up the cues of what she was saying and went for it anyway. And she didn't stop it. And I only bring this up because that's exactly what happened to me. So that man who did that to me probably doesn't even remember doing it. And if he does remember, he probably thinks it was consensual because I didn't say no and I didn't say stop. And again, it's hard to even understand myself enough to know why I couldn't say that at the time. It's on the backs of years of conditioning and Catholicism and not having a voice of my own and not feeling like I could speak up for myself. But there's so much nuance in these moments. And like Cam said, why I felt compelled to share that is that me going to that moment on the plane in multiple ways, I'd gone there in a Reiki session. I go there in breath work, sometimes even to this day, if it feels like it's on my awareness. I meditate on that. I've shared that story with my friend Danny. I've shared that with multiple of my friends. I try to give oxygen, and now with all of you, I try to give oxygen to these moments, these hard moments that have happened to me, because if you keep them down without any light being shown to them, if you don't ever go there, if you don't ever feel the feelings and finish the feeling associated with that story, you will carry it with you in your dating life. So it wasn't until I had gone to all of these really hard stories. That's one of many of bad experiences I had, abusive experiences I had with men throughout my life. And when I made the commitment to actually look at it, feel it, even though it was really ugly, really hard, I mean, the way I just cried there, it was like light compared to how I've cried about that story in the past. But after you do that and make the commitment to give these past wounds oxygen and light and putting a flashlight to these wounds and looking at them for yourself, feeling them for yourself, is when you can actually create a new energetic blueprint around dating. And you're not dating from fear anymore. You're dating from power. You're dating from excitement. You're dating from giddiness. And that's what the person across the table feels. But if you never go back to these experiences, and the body holds so much. I mean, the body it's just a collection of every emotion that we've experienced throughout our entire lives. And these emotions can get stuck, especially if we don't look at them. And so what I was doing back in 2018, 19, 20, when I was dating after some of these moments, really hard, heavy moments had happened to me, was carrying those moments into the first date and almost holding the man across from me to task for something that he did not do, for a crime he did not commit. Even if I didn't realize I was doing that consciously, energetically, the man could feel that. And man can feel, and it could come in different ways. It could come through in like when people say, oh, there's no good men out there, men ain't shit. All the spiteful comments really come from, I was hurt. I was deeply hurt by men. And here it goes again. Here's another man hurting me. So now all men aren't shit. That's how it happens. And really underneath all these phrases are wounds that we haven't tended to. And when you tend to those wounds, you stop saying phrases like that, and your entire dating reality changes.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
I love you.
I love you too. I love you so much. This not only affects dating relationships, this affects the world as a whole. When there is something that has happened to us that we haven't fully felt, that is when anger, resentment, hesitancy, and fear take place in our heart. And then we throw that fear or shame, resentment, hatred at a politician, a celebrity, our boss, our ex-boyfriend, the entirety of all women or of all men. And so thankfully, now that we've realized this, we're pretty much committing the rest of our lives towards creating tools that allow people to feel these feelings.
Yeah.
To be surrounded by people that are like-minded and open-hearted, that are also on this journey of looking at what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
And letting go of it and truly feeling it. So that what we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, where we can enter a date being our full authentic selves.
Yeah.
When we can enter any room without this heightened level of anxiety, as if our life or safety is on the line. That is our intention, to get people to the point to where their past no longer burdens their present moment.
Yes.
And their future.
Absolutely.
And this is deeply rooted in all of relationships. These concepts that are the solutions to, I guess you want to call it, undoing the problem that took place in other aspects of life, whether it was the personal experiences we've had, like you mentioned, or through entire systems and structures. Roman Catholicism.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying Roman Catholicism, not to point them out, but just they're catching strays today.
Yeah.
But the far majority of
catching strays today.
Exactly. The far majority of systems we've created in the past handful of 100 years, even just decades, have had an everlasting effect on how we view the world through a level of fear and scarcity. And that's not just religion that is political, that is just family values and lifestyles.
Yeah.
It has had a dramatic effect on how we choose to operate this world. And looking at those through an objective lens, a loving lens, and understanding that everything we've been taught, we can choose to let go of it if it no longer serves us, is one of the most empowering things a human can do throughout this lifetime. I believe it's why we're here. We're here to heal ourselves and teach others how to do the same. Absolutely. And this is how that looks.
Yes.
But on the other side of it, as of course, we're still not perfect humans. There's still much we need to work through and heal from. But once we have gained the awareness that it is possible that these things that happened in our past no longer need to have such a strong weight on our shoulders in the future, in the present moment, it empowers us to look at these things, confront them, and feel them.
Yeah.
And then it allows us to then attract people, now that we are close to the highest version of ourselves, that are aligned, that will not continue these cycles and patterns that have been happening for generations. And that truly is the recipe for finding love. And that is going within and learning to drop the shame and resentment and guilt that we have, that has been given to us.
Yeah.
Shedding all of that, so that as we coincidentally increase the capacity of love we have for ourselves, we will only attract people that love ourselves to that same level.
Yeah.
And that's how I think you find your person.
Absolutely.
Through doing the work.
Absolutely. And it's so worth it to feel so good.
All the time.
I mean, one of the biggest differences when I was talking earlier about that anxiety that you feel before a first date, where you do the 5 hours of research and you stalk the dude's mom on Facebook. I don't have that behavior at all anymore. Like, I am completely present. I have and these are some behaviors, if you want to look, if there's like a level of anxiety in your life, if you're looking at someone's profile through incognito mode because you want to see what they're up to, if you're stalking someone's following list to see if they've followed any, like I saw this one TikTok that was like, if you create a fake account and block all of the women that he's following, you will know immediately when he follows a new woman. And I was like, wow, that my sisters in Christ, we could be doing so many things with our energy. We do not need to be stalking a man's following. We do not need to be doing that. We could be investing all of our energy, all of our time, all of our attention, which is our most precious resource, back into ourselves. And while I can sit here and say this with such confidence, I also understand why you're doing it, because I used to be in that same place of anxiety. But the really amazing part is that when you decide, and maybe you're going to decide right now, right here in this moment, that you want a different reality, a reality where you feel more peace, you feel less anxious, you don't have to stalk a dude's following list, you don't have to be suspicious of what people or your friends or your partner or your family or anyone is doing. If you want to live in a level of peace where your mind is not clouded with all of these things, you can do that. You can take the first steps of that today, right here, right now, by deciding, I want a different reality. I just want to try on a different reality like a pair of pants. We make that decision with every second we breathe. I tell people all the time at my events, because they'll ask me, I do this speech for about 6 minutes in an intro circle of like 100 people. So literally imagine a circle of people and then me in the middle twirling around giving this big ground rule speech for the walks that I host. And a lot of the time I'll have people, men and women, come to me and say, how did you get to the point where you're so confident and you just are fully yourself and you don't care what anyone thinks about you? And in reality, that took a lot of reps, but it also took me deciding that I didn't want to be scared anymore. I didn't want to be anxious anymore. And that I was going to show up. I was going to put my full heart into it. I was going to prepare up until the point that I felt like I needed to. And I was going to rock it. And every single time I've done that speech, which at this point, I've done over 110 walks. Every single time I've done that speech, it's gotten easier and lighter and more breezy for me. And I feel like I'm floating on a cloud every single time that I do it. And it's the same thing for every area of your life. Like if you feel any level of anxiety or fear about something, just put yourself into that situation more. If you feel scared to date, or you feel like dating is really high stakes or high expectations, then you need to widen your net. You're going way too targeted on this specific dude. You're putting your expectations out of the water. There's nowhere to go but down when your expectations are through the roof. Don't let your anxiety create a reality where you are never having your expectations met and you're in a constant state of hopelessness. Like you don't have to make that choice. Right here, right now, you can decide, you know what? I'm going to do what they're saying. I want to create a new reality. Here's where you start tangibly, outside of just giving a speech and doing reps. What got me to the point where I felt comfortable to do the reps was a ritual that we do on a daily basis. Now, if you want to do this with other people, you can come join us on our call called Great Morning. If you want to do this by yourself, here's where I would start. It's 10 gratitudes. So I am grateful for. You do 10 of these because saying 10 gratitudes actually gets you into the body, into the heart, accessing what you are grateful for to the point where you're thinking of so many that you will now build a muscle memory, like an emotional muscle in the gym with 10 reps of gratitude all around you. That's why we do 10 of those. Next up, you do 10 affirmations. These are I am statements. So it could be something as simple as I am loved exactly as I am today. I am enough exactly as I am today. I am special. I am an amazing speaker. I am comfortable being fully vulnerable and crying in front of strangers, which I just did. It could be I am statements, or you could get into your body, into a positivity rant and just let it rip, and you'll see what your subconscious mind reveals to you. A lot of the time when I do this, and I do this every other day because Cam and I switch off when we do it in our meetings, every single time I do it, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I know that that's where my body wants me to focus. So my subconscious positivity rant gives me the blueprint for what I'm going to be paying attention to in my breathwork session or my walk later that day. So you do your 10 affirmations, and then you make one commitment to yourself every single time you do this of something that will raise your energy with a high vibe habit. So a high vibe habit could be going for a walk, calling a loved one, making a nutritious meal, going to sauna, cold plunge, going to an event for the first time, going on a first date when you're a little afraid, or not researching your date before you go on the date. All of these things are energizing and high vibe and bringing you back into the body. And I promise you, if you're deciding right in this moment, I want a different reality. I find myself in my head all the time. I am anxious. I keep on saying things like, there's no good men out there. I'll never find my person. I'm running out of time. If any of those things sound familiar, do this. Do what we're saying. Do it out loud. 10 gratitudes, 10 affirmations, 1 high vibe habit, a commitment to yourself for yourself. You do that for 30 days. You will feel different. Guaranteed. I will put money on it. If you do it consistently, you start your morning with that, you end your night with that, you will feel different. You will feel like a different person. And people will start coming up to you. You'll have miracles start to appear in your life. It will shift your reality because it is impossible. If you just think about like what you focus on expands. If you focus on gratitude, what you want to call into your life, what you want to become, and one tangible step that you can take every day towards becoming that person, you cannot lose. Your reality is guaranteed to shift. We've already seen people who are in our community having that happen to them. So if this resonates, I always want to not only just say these insights, but to give you something really tangible that you can do every day, whether it's with us in a group setting, which magnifies it, I believe, because you're making these private affirmations into public declarations. But if you want to just do this by yourself, take our playbook and do it for yourself and get back to me, DM me in 30 days and tell me whether or not it worked. I would love to know.
I absolutely love it, baby. And I think that's fantastic. What we've done with Great Morning is build a tool that people can add to their lives to, in the spiritual sense, raise their vibration.
Yeah.
But in the other sense, just to feel more positive, shine more light on their day. One thing I really want to talk about, because I feel like a lot of people watching this are in a situation where they feel exactly what you feel and potentially even more extreme.
Yes.
Where whether they know it or not, there's been things that have happened in their past that make them extremely anxious when it comes to that first date, especially for women, but this also takes place for men. I host men's circles. I've talked to hundreds of men. This is a serious problem that we face when it comes to relationships, and also going to get that job or start that business or whatever risk you want to take in life. There oftentimes is this hesitancy and resistance that we feel. What I want people to know is that they have the power to lessen that resistance. They have the power to lessen those anxious feelings they feel before walking up to a girl and approaching her to have a healthy, nice conversation or to apply for that job, whatever it may look like. And how we do that is by facing our emotions, by facing our feelings. Now, especially for men, that is the most unmanly thing we can do. At least that is what we've been told. We've been told that for a reason. What I'm here to say is that is a solution for everything we could ever want. And so our emotions and feelings that we have, I want us to imagine it as like a helium balloon that our entire life we've been pushing under the pool of water. We have our hands a stronghold on that balloon, keeping it down every day, 24/7, and it's wearing upon our energy. We're getting tired by doing so. And sadly, we know this is taking place when there are areas of life that we're not comfortable talking about. So we are pushing our emotions in this helium balloon down in the pool when we can't talk about that time between we were 7 and 10 years old. When we can't talk about our relationship with our father, when we can't talk about what happened with that one ex-girlfriend, when we can't talk about these things, and that is when there is something trapped within us.
Yeah.
And I am here to empower people to understand that they could subtract what is holding them back by simply giving themselves the space to let go of that helium balloon. We all know with physics, a helium balloon in water, if we're not pushing it down, it will rise to the top and it'll rise to the top fast.
Yeah.
So what that tangibly looks like in our life is simply not necessarily got to do a Reiki massage or sound healing, whatever. All those work and all those are great. Those are also additions we can have to our life to raise our vibe, not to put those down, but it's incredibly simple. All we have to do, and this is my soapbox, talk about this all the time, sit alone in a room with no distractions. That is the definition of letting our hands go and that helium balloon rise. The reason why we've been avoiding doing that our entire lives is because the slight moments we felt it, You're like, oh, that's uncomfortable. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to whip out my phone instead.
And to go on Reels.
I'm going to go on Reels, whether you're waiting in line in the grocery store or just nothing to do for the next hour or so. You got to pull up the phone, pull up whatever distraction. What I'm here to say is if we put those distractions aside and we give ourselves a space, literally give ourselves a space, the stories that have been coming up for you about your past that have been unresolved will come up. That's just part of the human condition. If we give it the space, it will come up. And our only job here is to unconditionally love ourselves as these things come up. As a man, we've been told we can't cry. That's why every time something that is definitely worth crying about, someone passing away or something traumatic happening to us, we shove it down because we feel shame of, I'm not supposed to cry. Men don't cry. But whether we know it or not, that has been dimming our light, dimming our impact, dimming our level of service we can give to the world because we're not allowing ourselves to feel that emotion. It's causing so much more anxiety in our life, so much more resistance in our life that we're not stepping into being the full man we can be. Same for women.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying here is if we empower ourselves to allow ourselves to cry, to allow ourselves to fully feel that emotion, allow ourselves to be angry, allow ourselves to laugh, allow ourselves to be joyful, whatever comes up, to allow those emotions to fully be felt. Once they are fully felt, they no longer hold power over us. I promise you, the moment you look at the thing you've been avoiding, after you fully look at it and it fully feels seen, you will feel lighter. You will feel less anxiety next time you try to ask a girl for her number or try to get that job, whatever other thing that the risk we're afraid of taking in our life. It'll feel less of a burden to do so. Less resistance will take place. And so the ultimate goal of healing is to simply have no resentment or shame or guilt around allowing those feelings to come up whenever they're meant to come up. Once we do that, coincidingly with adopting a new worldview of gratitudes, affirmations, high vibe habit accountability, like Elle and I have created with Great Morning, along with a handful of other things we can do to raise our vibration or to just to feel better throughout the day, while also throwing over the weight, the dead weight that's been in our boat that's causing us to sink our entire life, doing those simultaneously, subtracting what's no longer serving us, along with adding things that do, that is how we get to the point where we're no longer in our heads when we're on a date. When we're no longer in our heads, we're on a job interview.
Yeah.
And it is the key to feeling our full authentic selves and attracting our dream lover, our dream person, our dream friend group, our dream opportunities. And thankfully, even though, again, you and I are not perfect, we did a lot of that work before we met each other.
Yeah.
I took a year off from dating anyone before meeting you because I felt as if this work needed to be done. I spent a lot of time alone with myself. I did a lot of crying. A lot of anger was felt. A lot of shame was felt. And I let those things pass, which allowed for me to what I believe attract you in my life when I was ready. And same for you to me, or me to you. And that is, I think, the true magic. That's really if you want to get to the point where you're ready to attract that person, because they're out there. There's 8 billion people in this world. You have a person ready for you. We just need to make sure you are ready for them.
And when you're ready for each other is when you can actually see each other. Like you'll have the eyes to see. So if you think about Cam and I, we met in a yoga studio. And the only reason that we are sitting here today is because Cam had enough love in his heart for himself that he said hi to me.
Or to even go to a yoga studio.
Exactly.
Like, most of my life I would not have done that because how I think other people would perceive me if I'm doing sauna cold plunge or a sound bath, whatever it is. I had to drop that to then literally put myself in the room that you'd be in.
Exactly. And one thing that Cam and I have been talking about lately is that if you've ever had a relationship where you feel like you have so much love in your heart for this other person and they sabotage it, you know, this idea of self-sabotage is so hot right now, where people are like, oh, well, you know, this is my person, or this is my twin flame, or this is my, you know, whoever, and I'm so stuck on him, and he just sabotaged it because XYZ. I want to talk about that for a second from a man's perspective. What is self-sabotage for men? Why do men self-sabotage? Why does anyone self-sabotage?
Any human in general self-sabotage because they don't believe they're worth it. When there's a lack of love that we have in our heart, whether we know or not, that's actually creating our external reality. And so if you were to come into my life, which I believe is someone who loves me deeply more than anyone ever has, and is truly a person aligned to the highest version of myself, if you were to come in my life 3 or 4 years ago, I would have found a way to ruin it. Because I wasn't worthy of that level of love, of that level of freedom to be with you. And so whether we know or not, we are constantly limiting ourselves through our beliefs, through how we view ourselves in this world. And it's quite sad to see, but yeah, self-sabotaging is happening all the time. Self-sabotaging does exist. And what's happening is there's 2 parts of our mind. There's the conscious mind that's telling us all these great things and all these stories in our head that's always moving. We never need to shut up and keep us going. And there's a subconscious mind that is constantly taking notes. It's like the professional bullshitter of our reality. And so it knows what we're really capable of or not really capable of. That's why our conscious mind can be like, yeah, I'm going to follow this diet on January 1st. I'm going to do it for the entire year. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to do this, and that. It's going to be great. The subconscious mind on day 4, January 4th, is like, this is about when you usually fail. So I'm going to make you self-sabotage now. We're going to order Domino's pizza. We're going to do this, and that. Because no matter what, we can't override the subconscious mind. We need to incrementally build our subconscious mind through proving to ourselves, through our words, actions, and beliefs, that we are worthy of more. And over a period of time, the subconscious mind will begin to believe it. The subconscious mind has created this avatar of what we're capable of. It is creating a floor and a ceiling in our life. And so at this current moment, myself, my floor would not allow for me to become a crackhead that abuses people. My entire 24 years of life, nothing I have done has ever made my subconscious mind, the professional bullshitter, believe I am capable of being a crackhead abuser. It also has not seen anything yet in my life, the rooftop, that says I can be a multi-billionaire, incredibly athletic, XYZ, whatever the highest point one could be, if that's even a thing. I have not shown it enough yet to be worthy of that. And so if those are the extremes, there's also a lot in the middle. And a lot of people don't understand that because of how they've currently been living, they've set up parameters of who they can be at this moment. But over time, we could raise the ceiling and raise the floor. So where not only will I not be a crackhead and abuser, I will no longer be unhealthy. Where being obese is no longer in my awareness. It's not even possible. Or even now it's at a point no longer being employed.
Yeah.
I can only see myself being self-employed. This is something I think you're stepping into right now.
Yes.
Your floor is realizing I'm not even going to allow myself to be employed.
Yeah.
That's my new floor. And the ceiling has coincidentally raised based off of the beliefs, the words you speak into existence, and the actions that have followed, the habits that have proven to your subconscious mind, okay, she's past this level. Her floor has raised. And now her ceiling is also raised. That's why now more than ever, you feel as if you can do more than ever because your ceiling has also raised. So what we can do is let go of the things that don't serve us while constantly every single day changing our words and beliefs, what we're grateful for, literally changing the lens of life as which we view it to a point in which our subconscious mind is getting more and more data sets to convince it that we are worthy of something. And so everything we want to have, we can incrementally build ourselves toward. And then naturally, every part of our being will be like, I am actually worthy of this. I had to build myself into the type of person that is worthy of a woman like you. And that takes an incredible level of discipline, of integrity, of competency that many men don't yet have. Therefore, they have not been able to attain someone like you. but I was once also in their situation. But I, day in, day out, prove myself through daily decisions that I'm going to be someone of integrity. I'm going to be someone of this, and that allowed me to fully align with someone who can attract you. And that's the main problem that men and women struggle with. It's just a human nature thing. But men in particular, I think if they understood that we can slowly change the lens in which we see life and build tangible beliefs, words, and actions that promote a higher level of living. And that is what will attract the opportunities, whether it's romantic or business or whatever else they may want. That's my that's my rant on subconscious minds, but I really do feel we are capable of so much more than we can ever believe. We just need to take the first step towards becoming that person.
What's the first step, baby?
I think the first step is subtracting what does not serve you. And like I said before, I think it really comes from sitting in a room alone with yourself and learning to have no judgment around whatever comes up. Because whether we know it or not, those past experiences are deeply affecting us in this present moment. If people can learn that and embrace it, their lives will change so quick.
I think one fun fact is that I know quite a few people who were in relationships and they got time away, sat with themselves for a couple days, a week, and came out of that solitude knowing they had to break up with that person, including myself. That happened to me. Oh. And so what he is suggesting here is sitting alone, with yourself, allowing any feelings that come up to arise and not cutting them with a distraction like an Instagram reel or a TikTok, or whenever an uncomfortable emotion comes up, we always want to numb it with something because it's really painful. And we always say, now's not the right time. It's like, oh, now's not a convenient time for this emotion. So looking at myself earlier, when I started to cry, sharing my story, what shame will do to you is will basically like bully you out of not feeling. So it'll be like, oh, you're so cringe for crying in front of this entire podcast, or like, this isn't a convenient time, or like, just stop telling the story and move on. All of these mind movies are playing. But if you are sitting alone with your own self, your own thoughts and feelings, and you allow those emotions that you've been burying, I like to use the analogy of a trash chute. So all of our lives, we have all of these very negative emotions, heavy emotions that we're basically pushing down the trash in the trash can. And then every so often, they'll just come up and up and up and up. And then we'll feel one like pops out of the trash can. And then you just go, no, get back in there. And then you're just doing that your whole life until you actually take out the trash. Yeah. So sitting alone with your thoughts and feelings is how you empty the trash can in a way that's really healthy and cathartic. But I'll end here because I know we're over time for today. When I was in one of my most misaligned relationships, which was really born out of scarcity, this was one that I had over the last couple of years where it was a red flag factory from day one. And I could go into details on this, but all I will tell you, I'll just give you one nugget. This guy was featured on a Don't Date Him Austin Facebook group. And I literally was on Facebook for like I never go on Facebook, even though I used to work there. I opened Facebook and see this guy's picture posted to that group and still dated him. This is just to show you the red flag circus of that one relationship. And what gave me the courage to end that relationship, which from the very beginning was not right for me. And I knew that in my intuition, but I had so many fears around, I'm running out of time. I want to have kids. I'm never going to find my person. This guy has most of what I'm looking for. Oh, I can look past all of these raging issues in our relationship. Oh, I can do it. I can make it work. Perfect example of all of that. But it wasn't until I took the time to say, I need a week by myself because we were constantly together. And I took that week to sit alone with my thoughts and myself. It took maybe 20 minutes before I knew that it needed to end.
Only 20 minutes?
Yeah, it probably took 20 minutes of being without him near me to know it needed to end. Because to talk about what Cam was saying about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, when you're with someone, with a partner, like let's say you live with them or they're just constantly around you all the time, your conscious mind's constantly engaged with that person because you're thinking like, oh, they're in that room, or like, oh, let me say this, or let me ask this question, or let me have this conversation with them. It isn't until you actually get space from them that all of the subconscious mind's feelings and stories can actually like pop up and you have the space to feel them because you're not distracted with what's right in front of you or who's right in front of you. So that's why I believe a lot of the time when you get space from a partner, you get this urge to break up with them. That has happened to me so many times in my life. And the guys that I would date would like spend so much time with me. And that guy even made a joke like, every time we spend a day apart, you want to break up with me. That's how bad it was. Like as soon as I'd get time alone. So I just want to reiterate and leave it. I know that was pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
The self-awareness was there though. But if you are questioning in any way, or just want to question your relationship, or you just want to reconnect with yourself and your own desires and what is in the truest heart of hearts of what you want for your life, yourself, your business, your health, your relationship, sit in a room by yourself with no distractions for as long as you can and long as you're able. And you will, by the time you walk out of that room, you will get direction on one, if not all of those things. So if you try it, if you literally just try sitting alone by yourself, let us know. And then after you do that, do the protocol, 10 gratitude, 10 affirmations, 1 high vibe habit. You do those 2 things in tandem regularly. Watch that reality change, baby.
Change your life real quick. The reason for that is because all the answers are within.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for answers, it's not going to come from reading their book, watching a documentary, or asking another friend. It's going to come from going within. And then everything you could ever want on any topic will reveal itself.
Absolutely. I love you so much, baby.
I love you.
I think this was a fantastic episode and I love you so much.
I'm so proud of you. I love you too. Yes.
Are you so proud of me?
I'm so proud. You shared something I've never really heard before to that extent.
And I told you that?
Not to that level, no.
Aww.
I'm very, very grateful you did, though. And I think it's going to leave an everlasting impact on the people watching it. And a lot of people need to hear that today.
I love you.
I know that to be sure.
Thank you, baby.
I love you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, baby. I love you so much.
Of course. So that wraps up episode 2 of Listen Before Love. We're super, super excited for this. We're excited to have guests on soon. This is just the beginning, and we're so grateful for y'all who have decided to join us in the very beginning. So,
and it might just be me and Cammy for a while, because we just like being here and
we got a lot to say. We got a lot to say.
We can talk for hours.
24 years of stuff to say on this. But.
So we're so excited, and we're so grateful to everyone who watches and who listens and who absorbs any of this. And if any of it resonates with you, please tell us, because that is seriously our favorite part. Is that if anything that we said today touched your heart in any way, please tell us.
We'll link all of our accounts, social medias below, and we'd just love to hear from y'all.
Yay! We love you guys.
Love y'all.
See you next time. Bye. Hi, everyone. I'm Elle.
And I'm Cameron.
And we're so grateful to have you here with us. If you want to listen to an amazing relationship podcast where we discuss all the ins and outs of where we got to where we are, how we found each other, and how you can call in your beautiful love, you can join us at Listen Before Love. If you want to join us for 30 minutes of pure joy and positivity every single weekday at 8 a.m., you can join us for Great Morning, which is a daily gratitude party where we go through 10 gratitudes, 10 affirmations, and 1 high vibe habit with the kindest strangers on the internet. And lastly, if you want to join us for pouring our hearts out through writing, you can follow us on good old X and or Twitter, whatever you fancy.
Amazing. Y'all are going to love it. Oh.
You missed a kiss. I love you.
Love y'all.
See you guys.